Everybody, I'm really excited about being here today. As Brenda and Sally had mentioned, this is 100% virtual, which is always a fun thing to do. Let's get right into it then. In terms of my presentation today, I'm going to be talking about generic drugs, but basically looking at improving access and the quality of those drugs. As Brenda had pointed out, I head up the Office of Pharmaceutical Quality. We are part of CDER, which is the Center for Drug Evaluation and Research. So let me go on to my next slide. Bear with me a second. There we go. So what I want to talk about is pharmaceutical quality. And quality, I'd like to start out by saying that quality of any product needs to consistently meet the expectations of the users. And in our case, users are actually patients. And drugs are no different. So a quality product, including drugs, consistently meets the expectations of the users. Again, we see that in computers, cars, as well as cell phones. Drugs are no different. So we want to meet those expectations as well. The patients expect safe and effective medicine with every dose that they take. Therefore, pharmaceutical quality then can be defined as assuring every dose is safe and effective, free of contamination and defects. One of the ways that I like to define pharmaceutical quality, and I've mentioned this a number of times, but it's an easy way for me to remember what pharmaceutical quality is. When people come up to me and ask me about it, it basically is ensuring the safety and efficacy of the next dose. So again, pharmaceutical quality, the way I like to define it so that I can remember it, ensures the safety and efficacy of your next dose. So it's what gives patients confidence in their next dose of medicine. So that's always important to us for obvious reasons. In terms of my outline today, what I'd like to talk about is how the FDA regulates generic drug quality, what patients think about generic drug quality or how they think about quality of drugs, what we can do about drug shortages, and then I'll ask you at the end to join me in a commitment, to join us, the Office of Pharmaceutical Quality, the FDA, in a commitment to quality. So since we are offering CE credits today, the learning objectives for my presentation are understand FDA's tools to regulate drug quality and also recognize the causes of potential solutions to avoid drug shortages. So how does the FDA regulate generic drug quality? The way CDER's quality program, CDER's quality program, and as well as within OPQ, has a number of tools. So let's start first with inspections, which is in the upper left-hand section of the slide. Inspections are preventive. Our requirements for facilities are designed to prevent problems from occurring. So if an inspection uncovers an issue at a facility, it does not mean necessarily that there is a defect with the marketed product. It means that there's an issue with the facility that needs to be corrected. But inspections are just one way we assure quality. Every application that we receive goes through a quality assessment before we approve it. A quality program doesn't end at approval. We have active surveillance and enforcement programs to track marketed products and the facilities as well that manufacture them. We have multidisciplinary intramural and extramural testing and research programs to test products on the market. So we do some of our random testing of products on the market, and we stay ahead of technology developments that can impact product quality to make sure then that we're able to actually assess and address any quality issues with that new technology. We also develop policies that support not only our own quality assessment, but also global harmonization of the practices of regulating quality. We also have outreach and engagement programs to communicate directly with manufacturers and the public and to explain our quality requirements. And this is part of what we're doing here today. is being able to share that. So none of these tools are sufficient on their own, but collectively they can give us confidence in the quality of the medicines that are in the United States. So I want to explain how CDER's changes to the new drugs regulatory program impact the Office of Pharmaceutical Quality. So what happened is that Dr. Woodcock, who heads up CDER, modernized the new drugs regulatory program. So what that meant for us, what that meant for the Office of Pharmaceutical Quality, is that we needed to align to CDER's Office of New Drugs. As their structure changes as part of the new drugs regulatory program was set up, we needed to change to be able to better interact and align with that office. So we did that alignment with an OPQ. Also at the same time, we looked at our managerial oversight and changing that as well, and also the work processes to make ourselves more efficient. So what did we do? We added additional divisions and branches to reduce the staff to supervisor ratios. So this way now supervisors have a smaller number of staff reporting to them, and they could work with them and address their issues and work on their development as well within the office more specifically and have more time to do that. Also, division names, branches names, and functional statements were updated to better describe the work that we actually do within those offices. So let me walk you briefly through OPQ's current structure now that we've implemented all of these changes. You'll see the three offices that are listed on your left: the Office of Biotech Products, the Office of New Drug Products, and the Office of Lifecycle Drug Products. These perform quality assessments of both drug substance and the product itself, so the API, the drug substance, and the product, the finished dosage form. We review INDs or investigational new drug applications, again, from the quality perspective or the CMC perspective, if you will, chemistry, manufacturing, and control. We also review NDAs, ANDAs, BLAs, as well as supplements, and that takes place within those three offices. Also, the Office of Pharmaceutical Manufacturing Assessment, this is OPMA, as I've mentioned over and over again. Government loves acronyms. We've changed this office. It used to be called the Office of Processing Facility, but we changed the name to better reflect what it does. And what this group does is perform quality assessments of manufacturing process as well as facilities. We have the Office of Program and Regulatory Operations, which is what we call OPRO, and this manages the business processes. Just like any business, like any company, we have to manage our business processes. And for our office, those are the processes that are associated with quality assessment as well as facility inspection. The next office is the Office of Quality Surveillance. Used to be called the Office of Surveillance, but it created some confusion with other surveillance offices within CDER, so we changed the name to highlight the quality component. And this monitors information about the entire inventory of CDER-regulated sites and products. And that totals somewhere around close to 6,000 sites. The next office is the Office of Testing and Research. They perform research to support scientific standards policies, as well as surveillance and investigational testing. So as you can imagine, in this day and age, especially with the nitrosamine issues that have come up in products, as well as in the COVID area, this group is rather, well, actually all the offices are busy, but this group has a lot of work to do as well because of the pandemic itself. The next office is the Office of Policy for Pharmaceutical Quality. As the name implies, or as the name states, it develops policy, standards, and guidance documents that are related to drug quality. And then the last office, but by no means the least, is the Office of Administrative Operations, OAO. That performs all of our administrative operations. For example, budgets, hiring, things along those lines. So that really handles all of the administrative stuff within the office. And that is the entire office then of pharmaceutical quality. So moving on to the next slide, what I want to do is I want to tell you about how many quality assessments we do, both with the Office of New Drugs as well as the Office of Generic Drugs, so you can understand the magnitude of the work that we do. We have a staff of around 1,300 individuals, and we do and the number of quality assessments we do in an average year are listed below. And what you'll see is we do around 20 biologic assessments, around 200 new drugs or NDA assessments, around 3,000 investigational new drugs or INDs, and around 4,000 generics. So you take those 4 lines, you add them up, and it comes out to around 7,200 pre-marketing assessments that we do from a quality perspective in a given year. We also do around 8,000 supplements. Those are done post-marketing. So you can see roughly the pre-marketing work and the post-marketing work that we do is about equivalent. So we just don't check boxes in our work. So I want you to think we just sit around all day, check boxes so we can increase our numbers and just make things look nice when we have these kinds of presentations. But we make decisions in the names of patients and consumers, especially in these trying times. Please remember the patient is not an abstract concept to us. We are patients as well. But it turns out we don't really know all that much about what patients think about pharmaceutical quality. You can, as I mentioned earlier, people could tell you what how they look at a quality, the quality of a computer, a car, a cell phone, things along those lines. But when you ask them, tell me what you think about the quality of a pharmaceutical, what does that mean? Patients really don't know what that means, and they struggle in terms of explaining that. So what we wanted to do is that we wanted to know more specifically, what do patients think about generic drug quality? So we did a project with WebMD to first probe consumers and then physicians about their knowledge and perception of drug quality. We captured over 3,000 visitors to WebMD.com, and the physicians surveyed, we captured about 650 physicians who responded to an email invite from WebMD. So to look at the perceptions of drug manufacturing, we asked, do you believe drug manufactured outside the U.S. and sold in the U.S. adhere to strict manufacturing standards and regulations required by the FDA? Responses from physicians and consumers were nearly identical. Nearly three-quarters, 75%, do not believe or are not sure that drugs manufactured outside the U.S. adhere to strict manufacturing standards. And that's not a good thing. So what we also were able to find out from the survey that we did, unfortunately, prescribing practices by physicians don't tell a much better story. We asked the physicians how often they write a prescription specifying a brand name drug when a generic alternative is available. In the field, this is called dispense as written, or DAW. And we found that nearly half of physicians sometimes, always, or often write DAW, or dispense as written. So we asked the doctors who write DAW why they typically do this. Far and away, the reason was because their patients asked them to. Nearly three-quarters, again, 75%, gave us this as a reason. Therefore, what we concluded from this is that clearly patients are driving prescription decisions. But there's also something else that's influencing clinical treatment, and that is drug shortages. You're reading a lot about that now during the pandemic, as you can imagine. There are quite a few, there are drug shortages that have been reported. What we've done, though, is that we've asked consumers if they experience difficulty filling prescriptions due to shortages. This was prior to the pandemic, so this data is not biased by the current pandemic. And over 1/3 may have experienced this. Also, those who did were more likely to have used generic drugs in the past 3 years. And more likely to rate generic drug quality lower. So we've talked about some problems, but now let's start talking about some potential solutions. One of the things I always tell my staff, or my leadership team is that, we can identify problems, but the thing we really need to do is you need to come to me with solutions. We need to come up with solutions to address these issues. And the agency released a drug shortage report last year with some sobering findings. Over 60% of drugs newly in shortage were due to quality issues with the process or the product. So nearly 60% were because of quality issues with the process or the product. Over 60% of all drugs in shortage are generic drugs, ANDAs, while over 60% of all approved generic drug applications are not marketed. And that's a startling number. 60% of the applications that we approve are not marketed. And this creates a frustrating situation for the FDA, as you could expect, because we expend the same resources to approve a product, whether it is eventually marketed or not. And we see shortages still persisting. Fortunately for us, this particular report identified 3 root causes for drug shortages. They are listed here in this slide. At this event today, it's not dedicated to drug shortages, so I will not focus on the root cause. Well, I will focus on the root cause most immediately relevant to quality, and that one is that the market does not recognize and reward manufacturers for having mature quality systems. So what is then quality? What is a quality management system? More specifically, what's a mature quality management system? A quality management system is a collection of business processes needed to consistently implement and maintain quality. I think most, if not all of you, are well aware of that within your companies. One of the things is that we split it up into 2 ways: basic quality management systems and strong mature quality management systems. A basic system is reactive, and they focus on current good manufacturing practices, practice compliance. So that's the basics. That's the minimum that companies need to reach. What we're looking for, though, is companies that have a stronger, more mature quality management system. So we want to be, these are companies that are proactive. They focus on performance, especially outcomes that affect the patient. This then would lead to fewer complaints, shortages, and adverse events. And research has found that mature quality management systems also include quality metrics to measure the quality of the process and product, and quality culture programs as well to measure the culture in the, or assess the culture within a company to set the overall tone for that organization. Our drug shortages report also provided 3 potential enduring solutions to address drug shortages. One I will focus on today is somewhat provocative, and that's a rating system to incentivize investment in quality management maturity. The rating would evaluate the robustness of a manufacturing facility's quality system and reward facilities that achieve a high degree of quality management maturity. A rating system could be used to inform purchasers, GPOs or group purchasing organizations, and even consumers, even the consumer, about the state of quality management maturity of the facility making the drugs that they are buying. So pharmaceutical companies could, for example, at their discretion, disclose the rating of the facilities where their drugs are manufactured. GPOs or group purchasing organizations and purchasers could require disclosure of the rating in their contracts with manufacturers. And this effort would introduce transparency then into the market and provide firms' commitment to quality management maturity a more competitive advantage. I'd like to close today by asking drug manufacturers to join us in a commitment to quality. And let me explain actually what I mean by quality. So what I mean by this is that marketing approved drugs whenever possible, because as I mentioned, 60% are not marketed within the U.S. After they are approved or once they're approved. Providing consumers more transparency on quality. Maturing quality management systems, as well as embracing advanced manufacturing technology itself. So because this is a CE-approved conference, I've got 2 challenge questions. So I'll try to go through those quickly. They're pretty straightforward. Which of the following is not a tool used by the FDA to regulate drug quality? Application assessment, policy development, freestyle wrap, product testing, and facility inspections. So hopefully some of you are smiling, and I think the answer is evident that a tool we do not use is freestyle wrapping. The next question is this statement true or false? The majority of generic drug applications approved by the FDA are not marketed in the country. And since we just went over that, hopefully everybody realizes that this question or that this statement is indeed true. Again, over 60% of approved generic drug applications are not marketed in the U.S. So in closing, what I'd like to ask you is to join us, and let's work together so we can all have confidence in our next dose of medicine. And don't forget that we are also patients too. So I and I hope that all of you will enjoy today's the rest of the meetings today and tomorrow. Take good care of yourselves and each other, and thanks for the privilege of your time. Thank you.